25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. When you are yourself,
Yeah.
you are probably the most comfortable, right? When you can be yourself. How many times do you have to fake it, right? We've done radio for a long time, and one of the things that you don't want to do is fake it, because people will see right through you. So you don't want to fake it. So in my case, and I'm actually not so. This is more true for me than it is for Robin. I'm not a sports guy. And when I first took this job, the guy before me was a sports guy. So all the listeners expected the new guy is going to be a sports guy, right? And I let him know right up front, I'm not a sports guy, okay? Ooh. And so whenever sports comes up, I'm really like weird with the subject. I honestly, I'm oblivious to it. But that's who I am. That is the real me. And if you can figure out who the real you is that how you say that?
Yes.
If you can figure out who the real you is, then it's just going to be so much better for you. And what a wonderful message for everybody, not just kids. I was going to say kids, but the truth is for everybody. You could be 80 years old if you can, let down that facade, Is that the word, facade? That fake front?
Yeah.
Gregg Sulzer gets this, and he's given us 27 questions to ask ourselves that will make us sweat. The book is called 27 Questions to Make You Sweat. It's a workout guide for the soul. Oh, I love that subtitle. Gregg is a certified life coach seeker. He's a seeker. He's a traveler, a motivational speaker, and he's on the phone. Good morning, Gregg. How you doing?
Hi, Larry. Great to hear you. Great to be here.
And where are you?
I'm in New York, right outside of the city in Westchester. You know where that is?
Yeah, I grew up in New York. Do you know?
Okay.
I got to tell you something. When I moved to Florida, though, being in New York, everybody didn't treat me the same. So I had to say, you know what? I'm from New York. I'm not trying to say it's better or worse. It's just who I am. So I had to kind of do the same thing you're talking about, just with where I'm from.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one thing about New York that I like is I do think New York, people are pretty honest here. I mean, I've traveled obviously, and they pretty much tell you what's up. And I appreciate that.
Right. Absolutely true.
Thing.
Yeah. Well, okay. So does this come from your own life? I mean, do you have a history of feeling like you were faking it and then said, you know what, I'm not faking it anymore?
That's an interesting question. I like to believe that it came out of, ever since I showed up, in the intro, I grew up a very privileged young man, like crazy privileged. And my dad was kind of this interesting, he was a psychotherapist, but he kind of lost his way and he lost all his money and lost his mind. And so at 16, the whole game sort of shifted in a big way. And so I always had this thing. My dad was very curious and loved asking questions. And I guess because of what had happened, it was a pretty traumatic experience. And so I got very into being extremely combative and very confrontational when I was young. And I kind of felt, because my dad was an analyst, I grew up in a very therapeutic home where, we would just talk about therapy and we would talk about why people do the things they do. And I think as a young person and then into my adult life, I just feel like questions and especially questioning people, that's the only way I know of finding the truth. I don't know how else to get there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I mean, like, how else am I supposed to get there other than just asking you? And I guess to me, the biggest question, and it's like, it's a topic that a lot of us don't love talking about, but I guess because economically, again, when you grow up privileged, I don't know if you grow up privileged. When I say privileged, I'm talking privileged. You know what I mean? A country club, Bloomingdale's, first class, real privilege. Mm-hmm. And when that
I walked into Bloomingdale's one time. That's about it.
Awesome. But the thing is, when that privilege ends, you actually got to join the human beings. And it's a very different world.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very different world.
Do you know this is going to sound weird, and I hope you don't hang up on me. But they say this about nudist clubs.
Oh,
they do.
I love them.
That's what they say. They say if you go to. Yeah. Oh, you do? You like them?
There you go.
They say that nobody knows if you're rich or poor because you got nothing to show.
I love it. That is funny. I was at a nudist club once.
Yeah,
I was only one, but it was pretty cool. That's the whole. We talk about nudist clubs.
What?
So I think Yeah.
What's
Sorry, Bob?
what's wonderful about your book is you have illustrated different scenarios. You have scenarios in there, and then you do problem solving from different perspectives. One person would do it if they're brothers. One person would do it this way, and the other person would do it the other way.
Yeah, which I like, because I didn't, a lot of people have asked me, they're like, so, Greg, you ask these questions, do you answer them? And I don't feel like I'm trying to answer them as much as I'm trying to just kind of delve into them and explore them. Because, you guys know, we all know this as human beings, there's a different answer for all of us, you know what I mean, at some level. But the one thing that is the same is exploring is exploring, and that means, and I feel like I say it on almost every page of this book, it means going into the fear. When things scare you, you gotta go. You gotta, you know what I mean? You gotta go in.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It doesn't mean we're gonna get the same answer, but if you're scared of something, you gotta ask. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So,
It's the hard part is being honest with yourself in your answer.
oh my God. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, honesty is just so. At some level, isn't it kind of mercurial? I mean, we live in a world right now where truth is taking on a very different tone. And I don't know, when I was a kid, it seemed like if you said to someone, tell the truth, you knew what they were talking about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, we knew what you meant when you said tell the truth.
Right. Yeah.
And,
did your father? Did you have a father ever work with divorcing couples? I'm sure that happened a lot, right?
yes, definitely.
Okay, and one of the questions usually in that kind of a setting is, I want you to be honest and tell me what you don't like about your spouse in front of the spouse, right? Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've heard guys tell me, oh, I just said, oh, everything's fine. I don't have any problems. Yeah. But you knew that the answer was, but you do the same thing with yourself. Like, what do you not like about yourself? It's hard to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing too, Larry, and I think about this a lot, because obviously growing up with a therapist, and just sort of, for me, it was a normal thing to talk about the unconscious and the conscious and, the id and the superego, because my dad was a Freudian. And I'm actually working on another thing that I'm writing again, and, I'm going back, I'm taking some seeds from something that went down in my life when I was a kid. And I'm amazed that, like, unconsciously, like, we can think we're doing the right thing, but really all the old patterns are still living them. They're still playing those old tapes.
Right.
And, the only way to change that is you got to just keep saying, I want to grow. I want to keep looking. And the biggest thing, I think, is you got to be willing to have friends that tell you you're full of crap.
You are.
I mean? Like, you just do.
Right. You are a reflection of your father, it sounds like. You're not following the same career path, but the same way of thinking. You got the same mind, don't you? The same type of thinking.
Yeah, and it's weird because, my dad, I obviously have a bunch of, some of the questions I have conversations with my dad, but my dad definitely kind of, he couldn't keep it together. And I think one of the main reasons, and I think it's another reason that this book came out of me, was because I feel like, think about the crazy oxymoron. My father made his living talking to people about the deep emotional, how they communicate. And yet my dad, once all the stuff fell apart, he was completely incapable of communicating. He would, like, when I would talk to him on the phone, once I was past maybe 22 or 23, he would basically, if I said something he didn't like, he'd hang the phone up in like 20
Whoa,
seconds.
What's crazy?
Oh my.
I'm telling you, no, that's for real. And it's like, and think about it. This is a guy who has a PhD, and you know what I mean? Who is sitting and talking to people on how to communicate. I tell him something he doesn't like, and he hangs the phone up.
Oh man, I've had a few listeners like that.
and you also bring out that the results from a person is what a person does. So you have to advocate that a person owns up to whatever it is that they do to be a better person.
Right, and I think, one of the questions is, do you take full responsibility for all your actions? And I'm also a musician. I'm sure you get that from the book. I still play a lot. And I actually did a gig recently, and the guy whose gig it was, who was the band leader, we had this altercation where he had told me point blank, it's totally cool if you do this. Then it happened, and he completely blamed me, and I was like, wow.
Oh,
this
no.
guy's really, like,
Wow.
You know what I mean? But it's like he's like a 45-year-old child. You know what I mean? He's definitely not worked through it, and he doesn't want to take any responsibility.
Okay, so let's talk.
And that's hard.
Let's talk about other people's egos for a second, because we run into this all
Okay.
right. When somebody else has an ego and they feel threatened by whatever it is you are good at,
Right.
do you back down and make it and give them the spotlight, or do you say, you know what, I'm just as good as this guy, I'm going to let everybody know I am? Which direction do you take on that one?
That is a great question. You know, it's amazing, Larry. One of my best friends, who is he's got the pedigree, went to Brown, he went to Cornell Law School, he's got a big-time corporate law gig, and he does that with me all the time. He's like, Greg, you wrote a book? I could write a book. My book's going to be better.
Oh,
But the thing is, man, and it's a great question, because you know what? I think, actually, I kind of do both. Like, because I know when someone's all ego, we all know this somewhere inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone is all ego, you know what they are? They're incredibly insecure, and they're really scared. You know what I mean? Because when you meet people that are cool and secure, they don't need to be telling you that you're worthless.
Right, absolutely.
You know what I mean? They just don't.
Yeah.
You know, so the ego thing, and it's a tough one, because I feel like a lot of us, I'm sure, come on, you guys must have people in your life that have huge egos.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, we do.
Come on.
We know people.
We're in radio. It happens.
Right. I mean, come on, it's like egomania land.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
You also advocate for people to go into unfamiliar territory, not just in the career world or meeting new people, but also in different environments. Like we live here in Florida. If we were to go to the desert, that's totally different with a new set of rules.
Right, exactly. And I mean, even Florida, my family lives in Florida. I lived in Florida for a little while, and I think one thing that I tell people about, because I mean, you know, my family's down there, I have a bunch of friends, but for me, I mean, look, we're all different, but what my experience, and my sister lives in Miami, that's where a lot of my friends live, so it's, you know, southern Florida. But I'd say the biggest difference between living down there and living in the East, and I know it sounds mean and like I'm being sort of elitist, but I didn't feel like anyone really cared about brains, you know, and ideas. Like, people don't really talk about ideas and just being smart. It didn't seem like, you know, like, who cares? And
That's
the thing is,
interesting.
you know, in the East, though, people care. There's a lot of really smart people, and they'll talk to you about ideas, which I think is fun.
Florida is in the East.
You know.
That's what I thought. I was checking my geography here.
I know what you mean. It's fun.
You know, I mean,
That's what somebody in LA will say. People back east. They'll say that. People back east. Well, yeah, I think.
yeah, you know.
I think you're right, and part of it, I think, comes from the media, television, maybe specifically, because the subjects that are, and maybe this is changing because of all the new places you can have shows. But when it used to be
Right.
ABC, NBC, CBS, when they were the three, they kept everything. What do they call it? Milk toast? What do they call it?
Yeah.
Right. They did.
Right,
Exactly.
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and maybe that's why. Maybe people think, well, that's what the world should be. You know, everybody's you know, not approaching the, or they have a sports mentality too. Here's the thing, their team is the only team that's right, and replace
Right, I know.
replace Red Sox
I
and
think-
replace Red Sox and Yankees with Republican and Democrat, and there you go.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. And so I'm not. I mean, I was an athlete when I was a kid. Obviously, you know, I played tennis and I got good, blah blah blah. But I never really, as I got older, I didn't really follow a lot of teams. Although my brother was a huge, you know, he loves the Cowboys, he loves the Mets. I mean, he follows sports, but it just wasn't my thing. And obviously, when I got much older, you know, it's kind of, you know, at some level, I'm like, really? You're that big a fan? And I had this experience. One of my good friends in Florida, his wife was a crazy Dolphin fan. Like one of these crazy fans. Now,
Yes.
I don't believe that these people exist. So I'm just meeting her. I've never met her. And we go in, and the Dolphins had just lost, and I'm like, oh, yeah, those poor Dolphins, they are the worst team. And she goes, you will not say that again. You'll be kicked out of my home.
Oh,
That's
man.
good. And I
It's
literally,
true.
I said, the Dolphins are the worst team ever. And she goes, I want you out of my house right now. Ben, get this man out of my house.
Oh, that's
And I was like, is that possible? That a human being, like, is that crazy?
wow.
Yeah,
Is
it
that
is.
possible?
By the way,
And
I think there's an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm that goes something like that too.
But it's like, come on, man. Are you kidding me? Like, really?
I know.
I don't know. For me,
So did
like,
you leave?
I actually did have to leave. I think I was able, though. I left and then I came back, and then I was incredibly. I was like, oh my God, no! The Dolphins are the greatest team ever. I'm so sorry. I would never,
Oh
ever
man,
say-
that's like that song. What is that song where the song says, "Are you a Christian?" And he goes, "Man, I am tonight."
Oh yeah, walking in Memphis. I love that song.
Are you a Dolphins fan? Oh, I am tonight. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the thing for me, like if we're really trying to, I mean, if we're really trying to look at our life honestly, at the end of the day, I feel just incredibly blessed to be alive. How beautiful is it that we're alive? You know, just that. It's amazing. You know, and the idea that we're here together on this planet, I don't understand why we're not trying to figure out at all times how to make it better for everyone. Like, I just don't understand that. You know what I mean? Why am I not trying to help it make it better?
And that's just another thing that you answer in your book is about fear, because fear is about, sometimes people have fear of things they don't understand. I know that's a cliche, but it's true.
No, I mean, Robin, that is the biggest, it's like, and the hardest thing is, I mean, look, we all have families that are very different. I mean, obviously, you read some of the book. My brother and sister and I, we exist in completely different worlds. And it's been a very big challenge because there's a lot of fear with them. And when there's certain topics, if I address, they won't even talk to me about it, And so the question is, how do you deal with someone that's so scared they can't even approach it? Mm-hmm. And, there's no easy answer. That's the answer. I mean, that's the truth. There's no, because I go through times when I get really frustrated, and then I go, okay, I need to stay in a space of love and understanding. Mm-hmm. And then I get frustrated. You know what I mean? That's what it is. It's like a constant cycle. Stay loving, but get frustrated and go back to love.
Mm-hmm. So Amazon is indicating that your book actually comes out on Monday, so this is a pre-release conversation. The book is called 27 Questions to Make You Sweat, a workout guide for the soul. Gregg Sulzer is our guest and the author of the book. I wanted to, in the last couple of minutes, can you just give us some of the questions so the listeners know what they're going to read?
Sure. I'll give you some of my favorites. Here's one that I really like, kind of gets you sweating a little. How often are you motivated by guilt?
Oh, there you go.
Now, that can take some time to answer. And there's no real answer for that, but I think it's a good one to look at.
Another way to say, when is the last time you were motivated by guilt? That might be...
I like that, yeah.
When was the last time? This morning, maybe?
Another one, which is really, I think, a very tough one. I mean, you asked me, so I figured I'll just go for the jugular. Are you an addict? How long would you stay in a relationship with an addict? And I think that could potentially be the toughest one.
Well, if she's addicted to sex, it's a long time.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
But even you guys.
Yeah, she sticks around. Yeah.
Okay, and let's see. How about one more?
Okay.
How do your insecurities hold you back? Which is, again, like, can we look at the fear? Can we look at the stuff that's freaking you out?
That's a great one.
What it's about.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
That is a good one. Oh, wow, they're good. So I love the fact that we can ponder them. And in the book, you ponder them in your writing. After the question is asked, you ponder the question.
I do, and also I should just share, it says it's Gregg Sulzer with Patrick McCord, because Patrick McCord, who's this professor and this really smart guy who a friend turned me on to years ago. He's an editor. And initially he just was like, Greg, I have no time for you, go away. And I had to kind of bang on his door. But once we started working together, we really got to sort of ponder these together. And I hope that's reflected. I love that you say that, because it really was he and I just, going at it. And I feel grateful. I get to go at it with this freaking crazy PhD professor of psychology. And we were just going at it.
So once we come out of the other side of the book, how changed do you think we'll be?
You know, that's a crazy question, Larry. I mean, I say right in the intro, if it's just, even if there's a tiny bit more forgiveness, even if there's a tiny bit more smiling at the person in front of you, even if there's just a little more acceptance for your crazy uncle, for your, really messed up brother, that to me will make me feel good, because as we know, and change is not easy. Especially with the crazy, with psychological stuff, it takes a long time. But if you read it and you're a little nicer, that feels good, because I feel like selfishly that helps me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If the person at the store, the guy at the gas station is nice, that makes my day better. So that's what I'm hoping for.
It also, your words also seem to be very spiritual, because you do use the word soul.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big God person, but I know we didn't even get into that, but not God in the religious, but just, I'm deep into the idea that there's a connecting force in the universe that connects us all.
And some of the hardest people to reach are those who are absolutely sure that they're right about their religious beliefs.
Totally.
Yeah.
And those are the hardest people to reach, exactly, because they're so sure they know. I mean, look, I have people in my life like that. I had a friend, he was a hardcore born again, and he and I would just go at it. And finally, I realized I had to just stop, because there was no way to get in there. He was convinced, and there was nothing to say.
Oh,
not easy.
So here's a quick story. I used to move furniture when I was younger. That was my job. I worked at a furniture store. We were delivering furniture to a house with a beautiful, brand new white shag carpet. That's how long ago this was. White shag carpet, right? So in the truck on the way to the job, the guy with me, and we were talking religion, and he's so sure. And I said, well, how do you know? He says, I know. I said, are you sure? He said, of course I'm sure. I said, okay. So now we're moving furniture into the house, and I said, oh my God, look at the footprints on the rug. He goes, oh, that must have been me. I said, did you wipe your feet? He said, yeah. I said, were you sure? Are you sure you wiped your feet? All right. 27 questions to make you sweat. A workout guide for the soul. I found it on Amazon. Do you have a website you want us to go to?
I do. You can go to GWS Coaching, and you can see a little bit of me there.
GWS Coaching. You're a good-looking guy. Okay. Thank you, Greg. That was fun.
Thank you so much, Larry. It was awesome.
You are welcome. We'll be right back.